Hey, what's up everybody? This is Damron with Trash Ass Gamers bringing you another Elder Scrolls Online Veteran Dungeon Guide. This is for Crypt of Hearts 2. Crypt of Hearts 2 is found in Rivenspire, which is obviously in the Daggerfall Covenant region of Tamriel. I love Crypt of Hearts, both of them, 1 and 2. Really fun dungeons to run. This is actually the last guide for the hard modes of the base game dungeons. So we've gotten through all of them, and this is the last one for the base game dungeons. And if you haven't seen any of these before, I will fast forward through the ads, and we'll focus mainly on boss mechanics, but I will keep these playthroughs complete so you know exactly where I am and how I got there, etc., and to point out anything else in the dungeon that I think is important. But mainly we'll focus on the bosses within the dungeon, so let's get banging out the first set of ads and we'll meet you at the first boss. Alright, so we're rolling up on our first boss of the dungeon, Ibelgast. Ibelgast has 2 cauterizers with him in the fight. This is not too difficult of a fight. If you want to hold him right in the middle, that way your AoEs will stay on the 2 cauterizers, you'll be able to burn them pretty quick. But I do like to go ahead and clean up the cauterizers really quick, because they put these little flame AoEs on the ground, and the longer they're up, the more of those you got to deal with. Now the main attack that Ibelgast himself will do is he'll put this kind of negate a bubble around him that will prevent you from casting abilities within it. However, if you're outside, you'll still be able to cast abilities no problem, so no issue there. He'll also create a little AoE around him that does damage, but the center of that AoE is free of damage. So if you're melee, go ahead and stay in that and finish him up. He does do a conical attack in front of him, but if the tank's holding, you're behind, you're not going to have to worry about that either. So really an easy fight, not too much to it. So clean him up and let's get blasting through. Alright, so the next one is, well, I guess we're going to go back here for a heavy sec. But our next boss in the dungeon is Ruzozuzalpamaz, which is essentially a spider Daedra. She's not too bad as well. She'll kind of stay in the middle of the arena. She will cast these lightning strikes that will just kind of randomly roam around the room. You want to kind of avoid that. And then she'll also create a pretty large AoE that's lightning damage that kind of tracks around the room towards a player. And you certainly want to stay free of that to avoid the damage. Certainly if you stand in that for long periods of time, you can certainly get killed. And then she'll also cocoon a player, and that player needs to be freed by another player using a synergy on them, and if they're not quick enough, it will be an instant death. So be paying attention to your allies who get cocooned, and if you get cocooned, be sure to tell everyone that you are as such so they can use the synergy and free you before you die. And that's honestly one of the places that a lot of people lose their no-death run because they don't have a mic or some reason and they're cocooned and they can't let their players know. So keep that in mind. So let's get moving on. Alright, so the next area, you need one person to hit the left and right statue at the same time to spawn the next boss. And the best thing to do is actually to run into the room that he comes out of. That way he doesn't actually fear you into the wall. So the Chamber Guardian, bring him in here, because what he'll do every once in a while is he'll cause a fear attack and cause you to run away. And if you're actually outside in the original area prior to this room, you can actually run inside of a wall and you may get stuck there. It's kind of a glitch. I hope they fix it, but just keep that in mind. That fear attack that he does can send you inside a wall, so bring him into this chamber so you don't have to worry about that. So other than his fear attack, there's not really much you got to worry about. He's going to light and heavy attack the main the tank, excuse me. But other than that, he doesn't really do too much that you really need to worry about. He doesn't have much health. He's going to spawn some skeletons throughout the fight, but nothing really that you need to even worry about. Just keep slamming away, and you'll be done with him soon enough. The main thing is just pull him into this room before he fears somebody. So let's get moving.
The data got destroyed into the school. Let's keep moving. On the way, return to us. No savings.
Alright, so it turns out the Ilambris twins didn't really get enough of us in Crypt of Hearts 1, so Atho and Zavenr came around to try and see if they could stop us again. Unfortunately, they are completely wrong. So this is actually not really the boss fight. You're going to kind of take their health down, and they're going to spawn the Ilambris-Amalgam, who's going to spawn out of this kind of bones right here in the middle. So just take them down, and they'll eventually kind of come over here and form one, and they will spawn the Ilambris-Amalgam. Now this boss isn't too bad. He won't move, unlike the Flame Colossus that moves around in Crypt of Hearts 1. He'll just kind of stand right here in the middle, so that's good. You don't have to move him. He'll do a few attacks. One is he'll kind of stomp his leg down and cause a kind of an AoE around him that is flame damage, and it can hurt you a little bit, but not too much, and it can knock you back. So feel free to block that or just roll dodge out of the AoE itself. He'll also create an AoE around a specific player, and after a little bit of time, that AoE will actually explode in flame damage, and it won't do too much damage to that particular player, but if another player is within that AoE, it will do increased damage. So stay away from that. If you're a player that gets that, just kind of move away from everybody. And then he'll also create a lot of AoEs on the ground, which kind of do like a raining flame damage, and those can certainly hurt if you're in overlapping AoEs, so be sure you stay out of that. And eventually he'll spawn skeleton forms of Atho and Zavenr themselves, who will die again, and eventually the Ilambris will also die. And near the end of his kind of execute phase, you're going to see that. When the skeleton spawns, Atho and Zavenr's attacks will both be present, the flame rain as well as the lightning strikes. So as long as you execute him quickly, you're not going to have to worry too much about that either. But if you are a little slow, a lot of those damage can certainly hurt over time. So let's keep up cleaning, and we'll get moving on to the next boss. Now, I do want to point out, unlike Crypt of Hearts 1, there is no boss up here, and this is certainly can be a difficult pull if you're lower CP. But there's often a chest up here, which is why we came up here. But if you're going for a no death run, feel free to skip this area.
All that should concern you is that it comes to me. It convinced me of your betrayal, of the need for the students to pay for their insolence. On the contrary, this blade brings me clarity. I'm now happy.
Alright, so next up, Mezeluth. Mezeluth is not too bad. It's the second to the last boss that we're going to be fighting in Crypt of Hearts 2. There's a few things that you need to be aware of. So one, he's going to put his staff up into the air and create these little flame AoEs on the ground. Those aren't going to move, so feel free to just get out of there and move to a different quadrant. Now this is the main attack that's going to kill people. He's going to bring you all up into the air and put an AoE around each of you, as well as 4 AoEs into the surrounding area of the arena. And as you can see, 2 players died, and we'll explain why. And this is often the most common place that people die in this dungeon. So what you want to do is you kind of want to have each player have a quadrant of the area. That way when he pulls you in, everybody goes to a different quadrant. And when he raises you up into the air, you want to look around and pay attention to where the AoEs he put into the surrounding area. Because what's going to happen is that AoE he puts on you is going to knock you down. If it knocks you down into one of the AoEs that he had down in the arena, then the double explosion will kill you. So look around, see, find your spot, and get out of an additional AoE. If your AoE crosses another player, or your AoE crosses into the AoE that he placed down, it's going to kill you. So the other two guys were having a little difficulty with that, so I just cleaned this boss up essentially solo, but be aware of that. You want to avoid the crossing AoEs. As long as you do that, you'll be able to beat him without a death. So we're moving on actually to the final boss of this arena, and you can see this sword here in the middle. The ebony blade will essentially start this battle, and as you can see there's no scroll for hard mode. So what is hard mode and how do you get that particular achievement is by not killing wraiths until you go to the second phase of this fight. So Nerien'eth himself will not really be too difficult because the tank's going to be able to hold on to his light staff attacks. All you're really going to have to worry about is standing out of the AoEs that he spawns from the Lich Crystals. And these aren't any different than any other Lich Crystal from some of the Lich bosses throughout the game. You know, they come up, you got plenty of time to get out of that AoE. And then he'll teleport around every once in a while. When he teleports, he'll generally create a large AoE around him, but you have, again, plenty of time to get out of that AoE. So he's going to go to these grates and he's going to spawn these wraiths. So the way you're going to do hard mode is at this point, see there's the teleport large AoE attack, plenty of time to avoid that. So when the wraiths spawn, what's going to happen is the tank needs to grab aggro of those, and if he can, hold aggro of Nerien'eth's light attacks, staff attacks as well. That's going to make it for the easy for your other players. And you want to control your DPS here. If you do too much damage too fast, he actually won't have enough time to spawn 4 wraiths in. So we're kind of going a little slow here. We do not want him to enter his second phase, and that's going to happen when he gets around 45-40% health or so. So you can see we're kind of controlling our DPS. Now he's going to go to his second grate and spawn 2 more wraiths. Our tank is going to grab those 2 wraiths. Now he's got 4 and pull him away from the boss, and now we can get into the next phase. So we're going to damage him as quickly as possible to get into the next phase. And it's not really more difficult at all, because in the next phase then you can kill the wraiths and that's not really going to cause you any problems. So the hard mode is actually not too much more difficult than just the normal mode. So eventually when you take him down, so as you see here, a little sub 40, 35, he's going to go to the ebony sword and he's going to pull it out, which is going to empower him. And then once he does that, once it goes red, now you can kill the wraiths, and that's going to give you credit for hard mode. And the first thing he's going to do is knock everybody down, go to one player and raise that player into the air and kind of essentially have a tether on them. And he also has a little shield. Now you have a limited amount of time to do enough damage to him so he doesn't kill the player that he has tethered. Which, as you can see there, actually happened. We did not do enough damage to him before he was able to kill the tethered player. So this team had a few difficulties and senses of that, but we're gonna get them up, and we'll essentially finish this boss up. And that's the only really mechanic you need to know about Nerien'eth's second phase, is when he does that attack. His light and heavy attacks, as you can see, don't really do too much damage, especially if the tank is holding on to it. So you're going to see him raise up again, and we're going to damage him enough, and if you do enough damage, then that player will be free, as you'll see here. And as you can also see, while he's doing that tether, he's also regaining health. So you really want to minimize the time that he's doing that. So let's finish him off, and we'll look at the monster set briefly, which is the Nerien'eth set. And this set isn't used too often, by a lot of people, but it sounds like it could be cool. It's going to add health to you, and then when you deal direct damage, you have a 10% chance to summon a Lich Crystal that explodes, and also does AoE damage, just like all the other Lich Crystals in the game. So I hope this helped you, and if you found it helpful, feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time.